Okay, guys. Hi, it's Michelle for Goals ID, and as promised, the 15-minute video that's covering an overview of the upcoming webinar, which is focused on housing and security. This is for people who are considering whether or not to stay in their home country, how to prosper in that home country, and to build a blueprint to their dreams based on how the country operates, or thinking of moving abroad, or they're in a country that they're already resident or a citizen of, or transitioning in a new country, and they're thinking of moving to another country because of the prospects of going there. Ultimately, what we do is focus on creating the if then scenarios which need to be looked at based on information that is provided to us or that we've researched that is logical, and then within the constructs of what is logical we do the actual numbers to create that blueprint so we can actually see it in black and white. Now today is a free video that focuses on an overview of what the if then scenarios are that would be considered in the event that you're going to actually go into that country or stay in your home country. So it's all dependent on what your decisions are. So we're going to cover quite a bit of information about a few economic factors and so on, but nothing too deep in economics, but they're very important. So just stay with us and let's get into it as soon as we can so we don't waste this 15 minutes window that we have to cover all this information. So one of the key things, well, there are series, not a series, but a number of about 5 different categories that need to be looked at when considering whether you're going to be living in your home country or you're going to be moving abroad before even looking at putting any numbers on the blueprint. So you're going to be looking at standard of living or quality of life, which is important, cost of living as well. So the standard that you'll be living at when you've transitioned into the country or while you're staying in the country that you've chosen, and the quality of the life that is provided there from different factors that we'll go into as we go along. Another key point is human development. So what are the developmental factors that are evident within the country from an education standpoint and schooling standpoint, or skill sets, just from the viewpoint of advancing professionally. So because all those elements align and take you back to the prosperity and income generation part. So we want to be looking at standard of living and quality of life, cost of living, human development, and what your human rights are within that country from a religious, social, political, and legal standpoint. Some of the other factors, we'll actually go into cost of living a bit more and the human development. We'll expand on it. But before we go into that, let's just look at some other key factors that may need to be considered before actually going into the country, which some people do, some people don't. The level of research that is required is necessary to be done either way, because if you do stay in that country, some countries like the UK and the US, there's a requirement for you to be qualified as a resident or a citizen to know how the country operates within the context of living in that country culturally, just different elements that are done through a test system. So it's a scoring category basis that determines if you qualify to be a resident or a citizen of the country. Some of the other factors that you may want to think about is what is the population of the country. So if you are moving from a small island, let's say like within the Caribbean where I'm from, I'm Jamaican, I'm very proud to be. Um, if you're thinking about moving from a smaller country with a smaller population to a larger country like the UK, because the population of the UK is about 56.1 million people, and within the US it's over 100 million. So it's a really vast population in comparison to the population that you're coming from. So obviously it will be possibly busier, as well as interacting with more people from different environments. And going onto the different environments, within a population that is bigger like the UK, there are different percentage categories of people who have moved to the UK from different countries, such as within certain ethnic groups. So there's a differentiation that is established within the ethnic groups, which are categorized as ethnicity. The highest ethnicity is over 80% with whites, and you have Asians and other Asians, the categories of Black African, Black Caribbean, and Black Other, which is the categories that they're placed under. People coming from Africa, of African descent, or from the Caribbean, and mixed white, Asian. They have mixed black, white, and black African, just mixed black Caribbean and mixed other. It goes into white Irish and different categories of Irish and British. And there's a high amount of white British of 49 million in the UK, while there's only about 3% of Black African and Caribbean people. So coming from Black Caribbean background, which is the category that Caribbean people are being placed in, and the census from 2011, it's about 600,000 people within that category. So that does not differentiate between the number of islands in the Caribbean. So if you're moving from the Caribbean to the UK, which is a vast amount of people in comparison, it's almost like you're going on to a 25, yeah, 1 to 25 ratio. So, interacting on that level, one has to be aware of the fact that so many people from different ethnic groups would require some knowledge, or at least being open to the idea that you may be facing people that speak different languages and also have a different religious or different religions and belief systems. So majority, you're looking at Catholics as well as Christians, Methodists, people who are Muslims and come under the category of Islam, as well as Hindus. You'll experience different people who are Buddhist as well. So you need to be cognizant, if you're thinking about coming over to the UK, of the population difference, the ethnic groups, the languages, and the religion factors, as well as government and legislation factors, which are very detailed and outlined over here. Furthermore, the culture and the society may operate completely different, because the larger percentage of people that operate within the country are from European descent, as well as majority are of the minority groups are within Asian and from Indian background as well, 2.5% of them. So you might want to look at the urbanization aspect of it, if it's highly urbanized, like from a city dwelling standpoint, and what is the history of the country as well. Because like I said previously, there's a test that is done. It's called the Life in the UK test, when you decide to become a resident of the country, and once you're accepted, or as a citizen of that country, usually it goes, you have to take the Life in the UK test at the residency standpoint. If you're going through that channel, and from resident you'd move over to the citizenship route. So remember, we're just going through the basics of what factors to be looked at or considered before actually going to the numbers aspect of it and planning the blueprint to be able to build a blueprint to your dreams. So the if then scenarios are that the factors we've spoken about so far. So the quality of life and standard, the quality of life is standard of living, and the physical and mental wellness within that environment in which you've chosen to be in, or you've decided to be in. One recommendation that I'd make is, if you can travel to that country that you're pinpointing or focusing on, and experience the environment and see how comfortable you are within that environment, even though it may be different depending on obviously the scenarios that you go into, because there are different routes to be able to go into different countries, and we'll speak about that in upcoming videos. But you want to be looking at the quality of life and the standard of living, and the physical and mental wellness factor is included into quality of life. When looking, the quality of life is equal to the standard of living and the physical and the mental wellness factor. So what is the purchasing power within that country? So that's including rent. You want to be looking at safety issues. How safe will you be in that environment? Healthcare, cost of living, the property price, the income ratio. So can you afford to rent there? Can you afford to be able to buy a property in the? So let me do that again. So the purchasing power element, you want to look at the safety, level of crime and violence in the area. Those are some statistics you might want to explore, as well as the healthcare facilitation, because healthcare as a cost is just a completely different video that we also touch on when building the blueprint to your dreams. The property price to income ratio. So you want to look at what the property prices are to what income is that needs to be earned to be able to either rent the property or to be able to buy a property in that country, whether it's your home country or it's a country that you're transitioning or looking towards. The transportation system aspect of it, and commuting within the environment or neighborhood that you've chosen, because it's great to get a job, but can you get to the job? What are the facilities that you have, and how long does it take, or the distance and the cost involved to be able to get, just generally speaking, food, shopping, deliveries, commuting to work, just transporting yourself for whatever reason to hospital and so on. The pollution, level of pollution, and how wastage is dealt with within the country is important, and how the garbage collection system works, as well as the climate element, because moving to another country or staying in your home country is all well and good. However, if there are extreme climate occurrences that can be very disruptive or destructive to the seeds that you're planting, or that blueprint that you're putting in place to be able to facilitate wellness and just wealth and physical well-being, one has to think what are the questions around the climate, how the climate is operating, or extreme climate changes that are affecting in that environment, and how will that affect you personally in terms of being able to generate income, in terms of your health and well-being, in terms of just you being able to live in a comfortable lifestyle. So cost of living is the amount of money needed to sustain a reasonable standard of living and afford basic expenses such as housing, food, taxes, and health care. And that's according to Cost of Living Country 2022 worldpopulationreview.com. If you want to check that out. The human development part of it, long and healthy life. So you want to be looking at the environment, the pollution, the food that you're going to be eating as well. How is it delivered logistically, the preparation of the food, the standards that are set in place by policies and so on, or just healthy living in general. And another aspect from a human development index standpoint is education and wellness, professional skill sets and acquisition of skills. How useful are those skills that you're going to acquire? Even if you get an education, can you get a job? And when you do get the education finally, and is the market gonna be able to facilitate those jobs that align with your skill sets? Or if you're trying to move into the country from another country, do you have the skills that are in demand in that country, or have your skill sets become obsolete, and how do you have to upskill yourself in preparation for the changes that are to come? So you want to be operating at a decent standard of living. That's so important, because it makes no sense to transition from one country to the next, which happens to a lot of people, because of lack of information, and you're going in the negative all the time. And believe me, I clearly have been there, and based on having the personal experience myself, I can say it's best for you to prepare in advance to know what you're getting into and also have contingencies in place. So, what are some of the reasons why people actually migrate? People migrate for different reasons: to escape from past or future persecution based on religion, race, nationality, social group status, and political opinion. So, if you notice this key point, which is referred to here, and the references are attached to the video, this key point that is referred to doesn't necessarily mean that it's only in your home country that this can occur. You can go to a country that is a foreign country and also want to transition to another country or return to your home country because you're trying to escape or you feel persecuted on some level. But we're talking about actually moving from the home country, but be cognizant of the fact that there are different occurrences that may arise if you're going into a country where people come from different ethnic groups and speak different languages and also operate on a different cultural dynamics that differ from yours. So, some of the other reasons why people want to migrate or move between countries is because they want to escape conflict or violence. Because you have to look at the environment which you are in. What is the level of crime within that environment, or just any aggressive behaviors or things that where people are pinpointed irrespective of race, creed, or culture. They're they experience negative scenarios like violations. So environmental factors that cause displacement may be natural disasters. So you want to probably be looking at the climate change element of it, as well as erosions, storms, windy occurrences, tornadoes. All those can be very destructive. What are the contingency plans or the necessaries that you will put in place to be able to protect all those things that you've actually not only given up certain things to be able to facilitate, but also you've got them and you don't want them to be destroyed, because at which point do they get destroyed? And if they get destroyed at a point where you're going through personal challenges, or you find yourself in a situation where you can't recover from that based on age or lack of opportunities, it's very difficult. So another reason why people migrate is healthcare is important to them as well, and they need high level healthcare. So the cost impact of healthcare is another video that we are doing that covers blueprint to your dreams, because healthcare can be a make or break in any situation. So what's the support mechanisms around healthcare and the hospitals and doctors and pharmacies that are available in the local area or for specialist treatments and so on? What are the processes that you have to go through for specialist treatment? And if not, what are the costs attached to that? Some people leave their home country or move to another country based on direct coercion. So it could be somebody that's saying, oh, come, it's really great over here. And yeah, all is well. But when you get over there, your circumstances may completely differ from their circumstances, or what they've told you it is completely not aligning with what you had expected. So it's good to be empowered with information where you find out information in advance for yourself. Some people move because of education and job opportunities, and those education and job opportunities sometimes need to be put in place before actually entering into the country. Because if you're going into a market which is a larger market, like with 56 million people, the level of competition for job opportunities may be higher, or you might have to look at the availability of jobs, industries, what are the goods and services that are being created in that environment, and how does the environment operate in terms of supply and demand, or getting things from abroad, resources, and what are the limitations of the resources. So business and business opportunities may arise. Some people want to move their businesses abroad, and that's a great opportunity, which is facilitated by some governments to say, okay, bring your business abroad bring your business capabilities and come and invest into our country because we need to create supply channels, or we need to be able to have investments coming in, foreign direct investments or investments coming in to be able to pump into the economy. So if you're good at business, that's one channel that you could potentially look at as an opportunity to be able to migrate to escape poverty or because of economic stress, financial stress, inability to cope, family reunification because everybody's left has left their home country and they're left disconnected or feeling alone, so they decide to travel abroad to be able to reunite with the majority of the family or just a few. uh, some people leave for marriage purposes or relationships so that they can expand their family in a new environment. So those are some of the reasons why people actually move, and we'll touch on some of the inhibitors and facilitators, meaning what can stop people from actually exploring moving from one country to the next, or even deciding that they actually want to stay in their home country. Some of those factors are diasporic links. So, what connections do you have with people from the diaspora? Lack of technological access, so no information because there are so many processes that are online now and it may not have the internet to be able to facilitate knowledge. They don't have knowledge or the resources, they don't know the right questions to ask. What are, what are the questions that you ask that you don't know what to ask? Is there a recruitment agency that is able to facilitate transitioning into a job? And if there isn't, how do you follow through on that process? Inability to secure income prior to or after travel. So there are some processes that require that you secure a job before getting into the country, or at least show that you're equipped to compete aggressively to be able to facilitate having a job. And irrespective of being able to compete aggressively, is necessary to be prepared from a financial standpoint. And if you're not prepared, what support mechanisms do you have that you can put in place where you can tap into those support mechanisms like family or friends to be able to get through those down times when you don't actually have a job, or if you do have a job, how do you move quickly? Or if you do invest in a business, how do you move quickly to know what channels to move the money in so that you're not stagnated, but you're moving in a progressive way where you can maintain what you have and also grow it? So some of the inhibitors, maybe the weather changes might inhibit or facilitate them. So facilitate movements, financial support, as mentioned, whether it is through marriage, relationship, friendship, family, or business associations. What are the skills and employment market match or the lack thereof? Like we said earlier, you may have the skills but they're obsolete. What do you need to do to upskill yourself to be able to get into that market or in your home country to be able to advance quickly and to actually gain knowledge within the context of how to advance and progress? Some people actually stay in the home country or in their present situation because of a sense of belonging or familiarity, because it does take time to understand any economic system or any country how it operates at all. So that sense of belonging and neighborhood, knowing where the towns are, knowing how logistically to move around and so on, it does take time unless you're doing the research prior to that or you have some resource mechanism, goals ID, to be able to tap into so that you can have more clarity on which directions to move more quickly. But with the belonging aspect of it, that's a very intimate thing, or it may be just a matter of personalities and the characteristic traits that openness to and friendliness. How do you get to know other people? Your approach to being respectful. What do you expect from those individuals within your neighborhood or schools? And some people, they'll stay because they're familiar with that, familiar with family and social ties, or they may stay because of marriage or relationship, and they decide that they don't want to change their circumstances at all. Evidence of quality of life, so they're living very well, or they're comfortable with the quality of life, or even if there are certain occurrences, they deal with them as they go along. There's no need or desire to be moving between countries or to disrupt the stability element or lack of stability that they're experiencing in their present state or experience at home or abroad. Adverse views and perspectives, maybe they're getting mixed information from abroad and there's no clarity or context within which they can say, do you know what, I can make a strategic move there. There's no clear blueprint. They don't know which way to go. There's not enough knowledge, or they don't have the affordability to be able to go through the financial process to be able to transition, or they're not willing to take the steps or make the sacrifices to be able to transition from an affordability standpoint that may be very compromising, or it could just spiral them in the direction of wealth, depending on who they're connecting with or what information is in front of them. One last thing that we'll touch on is the adjustment factors that need to be considered. So adjustment factors, it's not just about getting into the country, it's about actually adjusting when you're in the country. So you might want to look at the language and differences or barriers, your attitude towards others and somebody speaking another language, or your receptiveness to learning a new language. Little or no family ties or connections, you may embark on a journey where there are no connections and no support mechanism. What do you do if there's nobody else to call on? It will take time to build community and relationships because people aren't going to, it's not a situation where you're going to be just trusted automatically. It will take time to build relationships, get to know people in in shops, in supermarkets, in pharmacies, and even through interaction on a regular basis. Some people, they're just not receptive to being friendly or getting to know the other person, which is their human right. Adjustment factors you might need to think about is the culture shock element of it, because if there is a distinction of a large degree in terms of how your culture operates, the food factor maybe the food factor is important as well. Um, what social events you can attend, how people who are from your background or similar backgrounds actually operate in the new environment may be completely different, or it may seem familiar, but it may come with some compromises that are unexpected because people will be people and everybody's just trying to basically get along. So you need to be cognizant of the culture shock, not only from the viewpoint of the people that are foreign to you in that environment, even though you're the one that's in the foreigner in the environment, but the people that are foreign to you, but people that seem familiar because you're trying to establish some sort of social tie or connection to the home country. So what happens is some people decide that they just want to disconnect completely from what was familiar to them previously, or their experiences tie them more to the community that is not necessarily a community they might have connected with had they been in their home country, but it's the closest thing to home. And culturally, there's adjustments that's necessary because in certain markets, what happens is the food that you have to purchase that is from your home country may have some taxes or some charges attached. And as a result, the price that you're paying for those foods may be higher than you would have to pay in comparison to what's on the local market. So you may have to think about adjusting your taste buds to the pricing aspect of it, which is not in conjunction or familiar with what you know to be the food that you love. So you have to think about that cultural element of it. Bureaucracy and paperwork, it may be that you will have to go through the transition process of being in the country You may be in a relationship where you have to, there are challenges or changing circumstances that occur in those relationships, whether it's connected to family, friends, business facilitators, business partners, and those relationships have altered during the time while you're in that country and you have to make the necessary adjustments. Um, there are costs involved as well, cost of transitioning from a visa and document processing. The the cost may be exorbitant in comparison to your ability to operate in the country from a cost saving standpoint. So to be able to pay the fees for the residency permit, or to be able to pay the fees for the employment permit, or you may want have to be friendly with people that you've not necessarily agreed with in terms of approaches to certain things, or there's just a disconnection that occurred or changes have occurred health wise. It could be different scenarios, and everything gets tied up in bureaucracy and paperwork, which is consistent, or there may be a backlog with the processes connected to the paperwork. And it's necessary for you to know the timelines that would be within the scope of that, and the cost impact of that, and factor that into the blueprint for you to be able to make steps, and how much time that will take, and what is the cost compared to what you would be able to gain by either staying in your home country or thinking about actually staying in the country you've chosen, or transition into a new country from a country you've chosen other than the home country. So thank you guys. We went 5 minutes over, but well, we got a lot done. I think it's more than 5 minutes, but we've covered quite a bit. Remember, it's about housing and security. We haven't gotten into the details of the housing and security webinar. That's on the 14th of November 2022 on our Facebook page. If you go on to Y Goals ID, that's Y Goals ID, YGOALS ID, and you'll see the webinar being advertised, and the cost of the webinar is $24.99 with some discounts for people who decide to purchase tickets earlier. There are limited spaces, so it would be really great if you tap into the discount part of it. And it's filled with information about how to actually go through a lot of checklist of renting a property, buying a property, housing options that are available to you, what are the disruptions that could occur, and just operating within the context of, generally speaking, most countries in the West, but with different factors, but with a high focus on the UK. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we really look forward to well, basically giving you more information, more insight, and just think about doing the webinars with us, and continue telling other people about us. Empower yourself with information, and we're really, really appreciative and thankful of your patronage, and the fact that you're supporting us. So continue to support, guys. Thank you. Bye.